What is going on, guys? It is your fellow TDefton here, back with another video on Warframe. So as you can tell from the title, what we're going to be going over today is what Warframes are, the hierarchy of Warframes, and basically how they're created and what it means for a frame to be a proto frame, an Umbra frame, a prime frame, or just a regular Warframe. So from my understanding of the lore and what we learned from the sacrifice, it seems like proto frames came first. They were the first Warframes that they ever created, and they were kind of like a test to see if this thing would actually work. And then Umbra frames came next, and then after that point, it was prime frames and regular frames. Prime frames are obviously like the more prestigious, special Warframes, and then you have the regular frames, which were just, you know, they were just regular Warframes that they could be used by really any Tenno. From our understanding, it seems like the prime frames were supposed to be kind of like a commander of a squadron, and then the regular frames were the frames that commander led. That's kind of supported by a little bit of lore, but that's all we really have to run on right now. That could be wrong, that could be right. We're not entirely sure. But let's go ahead and start off with the beginning. So proto frames came out, and there was only a couple of proto frames that we know of that were circulated, which was Excalibur, and it was also Nyx. So they both had their own proto variants, and they were kind of like the first Warframes to ever be created. We're not entirely sure if those Warframes had their own consciousness. We're not sure if those were Dax soldiers or not, but they were definitely Warframes of some kind. Then up next in the sacrifice, we learn that Ballas created these Umbra frames, and these Umbra frames were Dax soldiers that were infected with the Helminth strain of the Technocyte virus. And if you don't really know what that is, from our understanding, because we don't entirely know what it is yet either, it is actually an advanced version of the Technocyte virus. It evolved to a point where it actually had like a hive mind mentality, and at that point it actually became a real force to be reckoned with, and the Orokin lost, I wouldn't say they lost control of it, but it definitely got out of hand. So what Ballas did was he infected these Dax soldiers, whether they were willing or not, which is exactly what he said in the quest. He took them and he forced them to go through this process of getting infected by this Helminth Technocyte virus, and this caused their skin to turn, into the sword steel, and everything that he said during the sacrifice quest. That's basically what happened to these Dax soldiers, and they became Umbra frames. So in the sacrifice, we saw Excalibur Umbra. And what everybody's speculating is that each frame has its own Umbra frame, or at least a good majority of the frames have their own Umbra frame, maybe the original 6 or whatever. After that point, then we get to the prime frames. So the prime frames were created, from our understanding, after the Umbra frames, and they were really the main reason why they were created by the Orokin is to not have to deal with the Umbra's consciousness. So as we learn in the sacrifice, when Ballas created these Umbra frames and they still had their minds, they still had their consciousness, they were not very responsive. In the beginning, they thought they were. They sent them out into the battlefield, and they ended up turning on the Orokin. So what they did instead was they took the same format. They decided to take the same technology, the Helminth, and maybe they used dead bodies or something like that to actually create these prime frames. And this is further supported by, if you go into the Foundry, really any Warframe that you create, you have to use some sort of infested part, and those infested parts are part of this Helminth strain of the Technocyte virus, which is what the infestation is. So prime frames and regular frames were probably built off of dead bodies, and they were just exposed to the Helminth virus, and they just let the body get taken over, and then they transformed into Warframes. Now, the one question I have, and the one thing I want to open a discussion about, is exactly how they get specific Warframes. So how is it that they were able to make the virus know, okay, well, this person is going to become a Nyx, or this person is going to become an Excalibur, or this person is going to become an Inaros? That's one thing that I'm not really sure about, and there's nothing really to support that. I've tried looking. There might be something within the new Cephalon fragments that were introduced with this quest, but I haven't gotten them yet. So maybe I'll do another update video going over those new Cephalon fragments when I have the chance. But as of right now, this is all we really know about the Warframes. So just to recap, it seems like the Proto-Frames were created first. They were created by the Orokin, and we're not sure if they were created by Dax soldiers like the Umbra Frames, but we know 100% that Umbra Frames were created by Dax soldiers, and they still had their minds. So they were still able to think, they were still able to run on their own, but they didn't really have a consciousness, or they had a consciousness, but they didn't really, they weren't able to control themselves. The way to counter that is they had the Tenno use transference. Transference was a technology that the Orokin created, basically to live forever, to transfer their consciousness into other bodies, but they allowed the Tenno to use transference to enter the Warframes, and that's basically that. So that's one of the things that basically set the Umbra Frames apart. They tried this thing out with Umbra, and he was still kind of out there. He was still very aggressive. So what they did instead was they said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have the Tenno use transference to be the mind of these things, these beasts. And it worked out. So they then decided, okay, let's create these Warframes, but let's not use people who have a consciousness. And at that point, that's where it gets kind of hazy, but we definitely know that they got rid of the consciousness somehow, and they learned how to build them without using an actual person, probably. That's when the Prime Frames and the regular frames were created, and the Prime Frames and the regular frames possibly built off of dead bodies. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, please go ahead and leave a like down below. Comment down below letting me know what you think of this theory. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell button so you never miss a video. I try and post stuff about lore and also mostly about the Tenno. So if you're interested in that content, make sure you check out my other videos and then subscribe if you are interested. And like I said, guys, make sure you comment down below letting me know what you think of this theory. If you think it's wrong, let me know why. If you think it's right, agree with me, I guess. And if you think I'm right, but there's a little bit of a discrepancy with my research, just let me know down below and I'll respond. But anyway, guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.